All right, we're going to get started because we have about 75 slides and 20 minutes to talk. My name is Paul Bedi. I'm the founder and CEO of IDMWORKS, and today one of our customers, former customers, future customers again, Matt Chambers here is going to run through a fireside chat with me around advisory and why advisory is great for your identity and access management journey. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Matt Chambers. I'm the Director of Identity and Access Management at Finastra. We're a fintech services company headquartered in London. And we, just like everybody else, going through the IAM journey. So,
awesome. So Matt, do you want to tell us a little bit about, by the way, the slides loosely correlate to our talk track. So while you're reading the slides, we'll be talking. And happy to send out the slides if they're not posted on the app for you. But hey, Matt, let's do the story backwards and talk a little bit about why you believe advisory and what you get out of advisory and what the results are. And then we'll go through the meat and potatoes of it.
Okay. You know, for me, having an external company come in and help through an advisory process really can be summed up in a few words. You don't know what you don't know. The internal teams are focused on their typical business processes, what they've always done, how they've always done it. And it is good to have another set of eyes to help you formulate your strategy, your roadmap, produce a blueprint for you, or if you already have one of those, validate what you have is the best approach to the problems that you have.
Got it. And so you've been doing identity for a long time, and you had an advisory engagement with IDMWORKS at your last organization. And what are the typical deliverables that you're expecting to see? I know we have them mapped out here on the slide, but do you want to talk through a few of them?
Yeah, I think, you know, an advisory program's going to come in. They're going to ask several different departments, several different people, pertinent questions around how you actually deal with identity-based processes. And that could be on an existing platform or manually or homegrown with scripts. Once they actually do that, they're going to actually produce a series of deliverables around, hey, this is what we found. These are identified risks. These are suggested ways to reduce or eliminate those risks through a roadmap, a blueprint, a strategy and vision for your program, and help you not only with those deliverables, but also the best way to sell that to the pertinent stakeholders within the organization. So help you get the support internally for what you know you need to actually go fix and go implement.
Love it. Love it. So when we talk about road mapping, you know, when we were talking about doing this fireside chat together, you talk about architecture and you kept harping on architecture. So tell us a little bit about why you think the architecture is so important to establish during an advisory engagement.
So, you know, for me, came up through the engineering world and then moved on to architecture and enterprise architecture. And for me, a high-level enterprise architecture is very, very important because it is really the foundation of what everything you're going to go try to accomplish. And that's going to eventually lead to what we have on this slide, which is a roadmap or the appropriate way to actually go deploy that architecture. But a high-level architecture is also going to provide the foundation and all the information that you are going to go communicate to your different stakeholders and the different teams that are involved. You're going to get help creating the views on top of that architecture to go talk to your executives and to the folks that need to approve any large-scale program or project. You're going to create another view for the engineering teams who are going to go deploy said solutions. So it really is the foundation for everything that you're actually going to go attempt to do.
Yeah. Very good. And then one of the things that we think about during an advisory engagement and when we're mapping an organization is who's involved, right? Because identity touches a lot of different things. And right, we've listed a few of the constituents here, but talk to me a little bit about your process, about working with these stakeholders or working with the various constituents within your organization and how that's been successful for you.
So going back to that producing views on top of the enterprise architecture or your blueprint for your IAM program, you're going to need to communicate that to different populations of users in different ways. So understanding what those populations are, who they are, how they consume information is very, very important, because you're not going to want to get down deep into technical weeds when you're talking to your enterprise leadership team. You're going to want to keep it high level to talk about, high level risks, why they are important, and how you get from those risks to what is good and what is it going to cost. But when you're dealing with the existing IAM teams, you're going to want to definitely get more technical. You're going to want to help maybe some of the inexperienced on the team understand the what, the why, and the how in a more technical way, and really start to talk about the proper order to do things. Not just, hey, we need to do X, Y, and Z, but we need to do Z first, and this is why. And then we'll do X, and then we'll do Y. And here's why you want to do it in this order, and the efficiencies that you will gain doing it that way, and bypassing the gotchas. And then, you have the business, you have HR that you will also be communicating to. I don't know about the rest of you in your IAM programs and as you got started in IAM. Coming from a technical IT background, the last people I wanted to talk to was HR. IAM is tied to the hip to HR. You got to get comfortable talking to them, and you got to be able to communicate to them in the way that they need to be communicated to. So all of that in the services that I used from IDMWORKS helped us over those hurdles, and not only gave us the artifacts and the direction to do that, but taught us how to build upon that and continue those conversations with the stakeholders and the identified key technical and business partners.
I think what's important that you said there as well, Matt, is we taught you how to speak to these folks on a regular cadence, right? All of these various stakeholders, the IAM teams in the business, because you've got to use a different voice for each one of them.
Very true.
Yeah. And then how do you measure the success of your program? What are some of the goals or metrics that you used?
So, and this is where having a company come in and actually get very personal with your processes and your business, it will become clear what becomes important and what you're trying to accomplish and what you need to go tackle. And that could be risk-based if you're risk adverse or you have a bunch of risk that you're trying to mitigate through IAM processes in a program, or if you are focusing on business efficiencies or improving the user experience. All of those are communicated in different ways through a heat map for risk to KPIs that will show you onboarding or how we are improving business efficiencies or how we are reducing friction for the end users. All of that is communicated in different ways, and that is all exposed as you go along an advisory journey. And back to my comment, not only will you get the artifacts that will take you from where you are now to the next step, they will also be able to show you how you keep these things updated and how you produce these reports or dashboards on an ongoing basis to keep your stakeholders and business partners updated in near real time.
And do you want to talk a little bit about some of these? I know you touched on them as a heat map or whatnot, but do you want to talk a little bit about some of these ways to communicate with your business, what they are here? This is the one slide we will actually talk to.
Yeah. So, if we look at, obviously we talked about the heat map, but you're also going to define yourself along a maturity model and where you are today, where you want to get to, and the steps along the way. So a simple chart that shows where you are along that maturity model, or are you, case in point, developing, or you managed, do you have the problem defined? It allows you to show incremental growth and incremental improvement on the program. You can show it in an example here, the pie chart, which shows, findings, the core findings, either risk or just efficiency findings along the different verticals inside of an IAM program, where most of those are, so you can help guide what we need to go focus on next.
Yeah, you put the money where the most findings
Yes.
are, or the most critical findings.
Yep.
So talk a little bit about the building of a roadmap, and now talk about it in a future context at your current firm. What does that look like? What are some of the rules of thumb that you've established? So,
for us, we have a short-term roadmap. It currently shows us going out 12 months. And a good roadmap will take us out farther than that. It gets more abstract as you go out farther, but some of the core things that are important on the roadmap to help educate business partners and stakeholders and the enterprise leadership team, you want to focus on the foundational principles first. Everybody likes the shiny thing on the hill. You can't get to the shiny thing on the hill until you go quarry the stone to build the road. You've got to survey where the road's going to go. You're going to want to deploy the stones, so you build that road along the way. So focusing on the foundational steps, the least shiny things first is very important, and you want to call that out. You want to think of this as building blocks. So you don't want to get overly detailed, but you want to actually focus on your foundational products. What we're going to do for IGA, what we're going to do for PAM, what we're going to do for authentication and authorization services, directory services if they're included in your identity program, data access governance if they're being included in your program now, or if you're going to start looking at and implementing those in the future, you want to get them roughly on the roadmap. And then you're going to build backwards. You're going to start filling in the details for those big blocks, especially up front. We're going to do exactly this in the next 6 months. We are going to deploy X platform, and we are going to onboard X applications, and we're going to deploy a joiner and leaver process. And then as it goes out, you're going to get a little more abstract, because it's hard to really nail down the details 12 months out. And it's planning incrementally. We're going to want to match those incremental steps to understand what's important to the stakeholders that are involved. Your enterprise leadership, the HR, your business partners. Where are we going to solve specific things for those specific groups at what time, so we can continue to communicate that we're marching towards that. And we're going to do this from a business point of view, not a technical point of view. I'm going to go solve X for the business, Y for the business or for security. If we do that, the technical details kind of fill themselves in on how we're going to do this. And then Agile, for me, works best. Doing this in sprints, doing this in repeatable small chunks seems to keep the momentum going and people from freaking out about how large your roadmap really seems. You want to keep this in small chunks. You want to focus on the small chunks that you're working on now, and everything else will kind of follow in line.
Yeah, you're pretty passionate about Agile, I know that. And this is an example of a roadmap. Just talk a little bit about, why and how why you like the structure and how you communicate this out to your business.
So we touched on a few of these points. First, build the roadmap based on business deliverables first. The tech will fill itself in. Think small, incremental steps. We talked about Agile. That keeps focus on what you need to work on now and kind of hides the worry that this thing is 3 years long. And there is a lot of work in there to actually accomplish. And what you're seeing here is those large building blocks. Looking at it from an IGA, a PAM, a business efficiency type, view, and then linking how things work together. So, IGA can work with your PAM to manage the access into vaults or into deploy just in time for privilege access, as an example. So it really lays this out in a very simple, business-focused way that allows you to show your customers and your stakeholders exactly what we are going to try to accomplish over the next several years.
Yeah, so the red lines represent prerequisites or dependencies.
Yep.
And then you haven't talked technology yet. At what point are you identifying what technologies you're going to evaluate?
I'll put on my engineering hat real quick. I'm very requirements driven, so and that is one thing that you will definitely start to actually gather as part of an advisory process is all the requirements for the things that you are going to want to accomplish. But still in high-level business process orientation. And as we dig through those requirements, what that will allow us to do is build out the RFPs to actually intelligently speak to what we need the technology to do. The technology in this is the easiest thing to actually accomplish. The process and the data is the hardest. It's the technology that's actually going to help you deploy some of these processes will come and actually comes fairly easy if you do all the hard work up front.
Yeah. Matt, I didn't prepare you for a couple of questions that I'm going to ask you, but a lot of the software vendors will come in and offer you an advisory engagement to help you build out your roadmap, and quite often, they'll do a similar job. But what are your thoughts, and why have you not used them?
So for me, a software vendor will do an adequate job of doing something similar to this, but with one huge caveat. They will do it specifically for the space that their product is in. So an IGA vendor will come in, will give you a pseudo roadmap for what you should do just in IGA. Well, that is just a component of an overall IAM program. And they really don't play in the other spaces They don't have expertise in the other spaces. So you get a very blinder on view from them. A better approach and a less technical approach would be step back from utilizing a vendor in this kind of engagement and bringing in a partner that has expertise across all of these verticals to give you overall what a holistic IAM program can actually do for you, what risks it can actually reduce, what business efficiencies it can actually bring to the table, and where it can actually help your user interface and speed up user tasks as well.
And Matt, when we met you, your firm wasn't a big believer in Agile. Is this still possible to do if you're not an Agile shop?
It is possible. I mean, it's not like Agile or nothing. You can do this in a waterfall methodology. We tried. We learned that it doesn't move you along fast enough. In my personal experience, it brings in too much overhead. You almost get analysis paralysis when you're dealing with something this large. Breaking this down into small, manageable, bite-sized chunks in agile sprints worked so much better. We got so much more efficiency in tackling everything that we needed to do, and it kept the individual technical teams focused on what they needed to be focused on right now without them worrying about down the road. Focus on now, forget about down the road will come.
Okay, so Matt, who should sign up for an advisory engagement? What part of your journey should you be in with identity and access management?
It doesn't matter where you are on your journey. You will get a benefit from that external third-party eyes helping you with this. Like I said, you could be the most, you could have a very mature program, but you are only focused on what you do and how you do it. There's always ways to improve and mature. And having that third-party verification and checks and balances and help you learn along the way can bring advantage and help no matter where you are in your journey. From you're just starting talking about IAM to I've had a PAM and IGA platform for years. They can bring help.
Okay. A lot of organizations, or at least organizational leaders who hold the checkbooks, talk a lot about identity and access management is like set it and forget it, whether it's PAM, access, or IGA. And you and I have talked a lot about the fact that these programs are evergreen, and you wanted to talk about perhaps some of the pitfalls or things that you can run into if you don't communicate clearly, but also you've been taking notes and presenting around Nashville. I know that for a fact. And you talk to folks about, here are some things that you need to keep in mind. So I think this is a good wrap-up slide for you to go through some of the big basics here.
So I think for me, and every one of these bullets on this slide, I've actually kind of learned the hard way. An IAM program is definitely a journey. It definitely needs care and feeding along the way, and always will. I've always struggled with, will an IAM program ever end? Or is it there for posterity? And the notion of doing IAM will never end. How you define it, the official program might end per se that the initial deployment is done and we've rolled it into standard operating procedures. It's still going to continue. And because it's still going to continue, there are some gotchas along the way that I've learned First one, be numbers driven. Use metrics and KPIs to your advantage so you can show the growth and the incremental improvement and the coverage improvements over time. So you can actually continue to show why it is something important to continue to invest in. Try to pull yourself out of technical language and use business language, business efficiency, risk reduction, the stuff that we hate. But that helps the folks with the purse strings and the approval authority to understand the why and understand what it takes to go from where we are today to what good looks like and the incremental steps to get there. Operating models. One of the things that I feel, and in my experience, is something that can bite people long term is you get infatuated with this net new product. Hey, I've got approval to go deploy CyberArk PAM, and we're gonna do X, Y, and Z with that over the next 4 months, and we're gonna get a baseline deployment done. You forget about operational supportability moving forward on that. Any of these programs do take care, or platforms do take care in feeding. There are operating requirements for any of these that you need to take into account. You need to build that into the initial plan so that everybody is aware this is what it's going to look like going forward. How it integrates with your other security tools. Build that in to make sure that that is taken care of initially during the initial deployments, so you get the operational processes solid. Organizational alignment. There's very few programs that I've seen that actually hold all authority for all things that could be considered IAM. What is IAM seems to be a very different thing for each and every organization that I talk to. Could it be just IGA? Could it include PAM? Does it include directory services, authentication, authorization, data access governance? All of these components can play in an IAM program. What is involved in yours? And then, does the IAM team have direct operational authority over each of those components, or are you running in a matrixed type model? So the organizational alignment is very, very important. How is this going to be organizationally supported moving forward? You need to get agreement on what success looks like from all stakeholders and business units and everybody involved, so you are all marching to the same goal. If you don't all agree to that up front, you're all marching to different goals, and nobody is going to think you are successful at the same time.
Agreed. And so this is the wrap-up slide. This is the same as the first slide. Matt, you've said a lot. You want to take us home, I think, before we keep people away from the evening festivities, maybe bring it home for us.
So, in summary, I think really an advisory program or an advisory engagement can help in many ways. It can educate your internal team on the best way to do things from in ways that they don't think. Most IAM teams are very technical. They're made up of engineers, analysts, possibly architects, and they focus on it from their point of view. Very few step back and look at it from a business point of view, or are comfortable talking to HR and how to communicate to HR. So you're going to gain that benefit. They're going to help you ask the questions that you don't know that you need to ask to uncover the processes you don't know exist in your organization, so that you can bring those underneath the strategy and roadmap, and shine a light of focus on those mostly manual processes as you work through these processes. And then finally, that roadmap, enterprise architecture, reference design, blueprint, however you want to call it, getting that initial document produced and the different views with how you communicate that to the different populations within your organization to help make sure that everybody is aware of why we are going through this IAM effort.
Very good. And that was it.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks all.